We are live across all of our channels.
People are struggling to connect with their audience or to try to get awareness for their brand. Your most important copy should be your headline. So think of structuring your content in that way. So you're guiding them. If it's hard for you to read within like the first 1 to 2 seconds, I'm talking like milliseconds really, you need to change the font.
Blurry Skate, you asked what's your thinking on deciding the colors.
Think about the emotions tied to color. What is it that you're trying to evoke? You know, when we buy from these brands that we love, it's usually because they made us feel something.
Excellent. We are live across all of our channels, so welcome to our Twitter and Facebook guests joining us today. Wait, I have a new background. I want to shout out our design team for getting us this dope virtual background. It's so exciting, and we actually have all kinds of designs that you guys can find on our make page at spark.adobe.com/make. And you can make your own virtual Zoom backgrounds as well. Can't get this one. This one's mine. This one's mine.
I love it. I love it.
Awesome. So for those of you just joining us, I have Nikde Cuevas from Nikde Creative Design joining us to give small businesses digital campaign business strategies. Welcome, Nikde.
Thank you so much for having me. I got to get used to looking at two screens. So if you see me do this, turn
it. Like a good, sit back, lean back, talk to everybody. We're all here together. Yes.
Absolutely. So before we get into the design component, I always start with this process. And this is something that I really instill for people who are not necessarily designers and even for designers. So before you get into getting your sparks done, and, spark your creativity, no pun intended, but really.
All pun intended.
About sparking. You want to make sure that before you get into creating your designs or your graphics, you have a goal in mind. So literally list out, what is it that you want to accomplish? Are you wanting to raise brand awareness? Are you wanting to empower your audience with some knowledge, tips and tricks? Or are you trying to generate a sale? So all of these are very different. And the approach for the design should be very different because you're going to communicate different values. Right?
Amazing. Well, before we hop into anything too business strategy-wise, talk to us about what's been going on for you since we've had to go into quarantine. How's life? How's business? How's things?
Ooh, that's a great question. I know. I love that, this is like my business mindset going in straightforward.
I know, I'm
and I love that because I think because of my background and the things I've been through in life, sometimes I've kind of just drive, go, even though things are getting tough. But being completely honest, the people that know me, I will say it has been very rough. It has been very, very rough. So my husband's in the military and he's been working 6 days a week since we've been here in San Antonio. So I'm used to that schedule. But with everything going on, it's much harder. So I feel a lot of the times we have a little one. So I feel I'm the only parent. So it makes it very difficult. We have a little one with special needs. So he requires a lot of extra help. I'm helping do speech therapy, occupational therapy, all through teleservices, which is an incredible benefit because you can actually connect. But now I'm having to learn how to do a job that I wasn't trained to do. So it's this is all new.
I know.
It's been tough. But what I've been doing to really kind of just get work in is I've been waking up at 3:45 in the morning with my husband because he goes into work super early. So I wake up super early, but I also go to bed super early.
I was gonna ask, how you saw my jaw drop. How early do you have to go to bed to wake up at 3:45?
Depending on how tired I am the day before. My toddler had a lot of tantrums. It may be at 8:30.
Yeah.
Sometimes 9. If I go past 9:30 and 10 the next day, I got the pretty baggy eyes you get.
Also these days, yes.
So it took a long time to get used to it. We've been doing this waking up early for quite a while. It's just now with the new shift and everything, we just woke up 15 minutes earlier. So it's not much of a change, but it was very difficult in the beginning. But that I found that was the only way I had some downtime and quiet time to get work in. Because as creatives, sometimes you need that nice
We need that quiet space.
Yeah, that is just like too much going on just disrupts my flow. So that's kind of how I'm making it work.
Nice. So you've moved your creative time earlier into the day to make sure that you get it in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to be like you, Nick Day.
Oh, it was hard. Coffee helps too.
Coffee, it helps with everything. Absolutely everything. All right. Well, then I'm so glad that you do have the time. Thank you for taking the time to create something for the small business owners that are probably watching us now. So do you want to hop into some strategies for people that maybe are like you, that have small businesses, you need to find that time, but home isn't necessarily the place of peace at this moment, but we're still making it work.
Yeah. And I think too, before we like segment into that, I know everyone's probably going through a really tough time. And I think if I can just share something from being thrown a lot of wrenches in my life and curveballs and whatnot, is that take this time to see how you can learn from your experiences, because I think for me personally, in the worst times of my life, it's when I've grown the most and learned so much about myself. So maybe, think about that as an opportunity to just kind of grow personally, business, and just as a family, and you get to spend more time together. So that's something that, and I think it's a great segue to what I was talking initially about how, as a business, and if you're struggling, I know it's so hard. And I think right now people are struggling to connect with their audience or to try to get awareness for their brand. Mm-hmm. I think the best way to lead with anything is through empathy, to really understand who you're serving, who you want to empower, and how you want to help them. Because when you have that in place first, it's so much easier. It's like you're having a conversation like Courtney and I are having right now. You feel that it's more conversational. It's not that barrier of like, I just want to make a sale to you and buy from me.
Right.
At this time, no one's really going to do that. So yeah, and I think that that's very important. So if you haven't done that, just write that down. Get to know your ideal audience. What are their pain points, especially now that
learn their pain points. I think that's the main work that anyone on any marketing side can. That's what we're all doing. That's the strategy right now, finding out our audience's pain points and learning what we can do to help.
Yes. And there's just so much power in that. And I think it also helps to deflect from like your own things, like how you may be feeling, and you focus on someone else and helping someone else. It kind of just shifts. If you're feeling down, I tend to do that too. I'm a very empathetic person. So if I catch myself, I shift the focus onto someone that needs my help, and that'll help you. So once you have that in place, and then before you get into the design component, which was kind of what I was talking about again, and I'll briefly go over it, is you want to make sure you have a goal in place before you get into any strategy of sort. You want to make sure you know what you're trying to accomplish. So if you're trying to raise brand awareness, or if you're trying to make more sales, or if you're trying to give some value insight, teach something to your audience that relates to your product or service, those are 3 different goals that you can have, but each of those require a different execution digitally or like design wise. So have that in mind. When you know what you're trying to accomplish, it'll make it so much easier to break down your content into something that makes it easy for people to read and consume.
That's so good. Wait, I've got a comment that we do have an echo.
Oh,
let me see. Anyone else hearing an echo? That would be good feedback for us at the moment, if you would be so kind.
Let's see if does this help with the echo?
Let's see if he comes
Let's
back.
hope. I'm just unmuting myself on one side.
Same here.
This is technology. We're working at it as we go.
Figuring it out. It's happening live. Excellent. Well,
okay, great. Fantastic. Okay. Excellent. So now we're back on it. Thank you. We just wanted to have like a little echo fire for you guys to hear.
We do have one other echo on Facebook, so I'll tend to that. I'll get that fixed, but you go ahead.
Excellent. So then the next thing is, once you have your goals in place, then you're gonna want to figure out what type of content you want to do. So let's say you have a value point and you're trying to teach a little tutorial. Sometimes tutorials are best done as a video because you can actually share more content. So try not to do an entire tutorial in one graphic, because it's going to be a lot, especially if you're posting on social media. Your content needs to be a lot smaller so that you can kind of enhance the reading experience for that platform. So really think about those components and the requirements to do that. And then you kind of go into saying, okay, these are the things that I need to support this digital strategy or this campaign that I'm trying to do that is going to be for raising brand awareness or making sales. So you're kind of starting to connect the dots. That way, when you sit down and actually start to do your designs, you don't feel like that blank stare. What do I do? You have some strategy in place. And again, we kind of reconnect it to driving emotion. You want to use visuals as you're planning your campaign and your content. And we'll go into just a minute showing some ideas that you guys can get some inspiration from. But you want to use visuals that connect with people, with the emotions that they're feeling, especially in this time where people are feeling, you can have people feeling really sad and frustrated. So you want to avoid visuals or even colors that make it feel subdued or dark and just frustrating, because no one's going to connect with that. You're trying to connect with the positive values and that empathy of how people want to feel. People want to feel happy in a time of difficulty and uncertainty. So all those things help you get started into your strategy. Now I'm going to share my screen so that you guys can now see. And if anyone has any questions, just let Courtney know and she will flag me down. What happens is I get really excited about some topics and I need to, take a pause. If you guys find me talking too fast or have a question, just let Courtney know, because I'm just passionate about this. So my passion comes with talking fast. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Because one of the things that I love about using Adobe Spark is that I can literally be working from my desktop or use my iPad or iPhone. And for me as a working mother, that has been gold, because I literally, if I need to be away from my computer, I can go and use my iPad and it's just so much better. And I don't have to be lugging my computer around. So can you guys see my screen, the iPad screen? Courtney, can you still see?
We can see.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys an example that is, let's say you're promoting a sale, you have a product that you're trying to really raise awareness for, and sometimes we get so excited and we want to share all the value points of the product and we just put it all there. And if you see this really quick, it's kind of hard to read. And sometimes you don't notice that it's hard to read, but if I show you the difference it makes when we structure the content better and we're using the same exact copy, I'm just structuring it in a different way that it guides your eye into the content. And so what happens is, as we're guiding the eye, you're telling people what you want them to read first before you go into, hold on, I'm having some issues with the connection of here we go. So you're kind of guiding people what to read within your copy without telling them, read this first, read this next. So you can see the difference that it makes. Now that we've structured it, we have a headline. So you're talking, if you're trying to introduce a product, you're naming your product or service, that needs to be clear. So we make that larger in the headline. And then you have an actual photograph of the product itself. So that really helps connect the audience to what it is, especially on social media where people are scrolling, and you're trying to get attention. That's very important. And then, yes, thank you, Courtney. See, this is I love that. Okay. All right, let's see. Can you guys, let's see how I can make this smaller. Thank you for telling me, Courtney. All right, you guys. Okay. All right, perfect. So let me backtrack and I'll show you guys, for those of you that weren't seeing the screen earlier. Okay, I have to redo this because it'll snap me out. So I'm going to backtrack to the original example where I was talking about where all the type is bold and heavy and you really cannot see as to what to read first, right? Really, there's no structure. And it sometimes stems with the excitement. We want to share it all. Hey, we think bold, all caps letter are going to stand out. And it really doesn't. So what I did was I created another design that we were using the same exact content, the same copy, didn't change anything. And I ended up using a different structure. It's not pulling up on the screen right now. There we go. Can you guys see my screen or did it stop? Yep. Sorry. technical difficulties. I keep getting kicked out. Okay. All right. There we go. Now we're back on this. Instagram was seeing the design, but not on the other guys. So now that we're back on this, you can see how I have a hierarchy within the structure of the design. So we still have a product in place that can help that quick association with what you're trying to communicate. Then you have your headline, which usually, if however you structure your content, I like to make this comparison of a high rise. So when you think about high rise, the people at the very top, you know, the top big deal guys are always at the top, right? So how you structure your content should be similar to that concept. So your most important copy should be your headline. So, you know, think about the big guys at the top. Then your sub copy or your sub headline could be, you know, the middle management or the people who support the guys up. So think of structuring your content in that way. So as you structure your designs with your copy that way, you're helping people understand without them knowing, read this first, then read this, then read this. And it enhances the reading experience, because what happens when we put everything in the same size and all sorts of different fonts, you create confusion and people are not really sure where to look. So you're guiding them and you're creating this, kind of like when you read a great book and you're just like flipping the pages. Think about it like that with your content. So I structured it, and then on the bottom part, when you go into the lower part of your hierarchy, it could be your body copy. Keep it short, sweet, and simple, especially if you're on social media or any digital platform. Don't have so much copy. If you need to add more, either break it into a video or break it into other posts or another graphic so that there's just not so much information. And then, yeah, I'm glad. And, you know, if you guys have questions too with the structure, just let me know. And then at the very bottom, if you guys are running any type of advertisement that requires some sort of disclaimer, think about that in your high rise. That's like your garage, like where, you know, people just park their cars and that's it. So make your type small and make it small so that people can't see it, but it's still there. So you're abiding by the regulations of having this disclaimer in there. So just think about that when you're structuring your content. And let's take a look at other examples that are not necessarily related to products, but you can be sharing something that is talking about a belief you have as a brand, or you're sharing a quote. And all of these designs, I've done them inside Adobe Spark Post. And you guys, I will share all these remixable templates so you can use them for yourself at the end of the video, or I'll share the link so you guys can access them and use them. So with these, I just created a custom illustrated background and I put that in there. I used Adobe fonts, which was super fantastic, and I structured it. So how I structured it was there were certain words I wanted to stand out, right? We're kind of creating this whole connection behind the emotion. So age often is a pain point for some people. They may feel old or too young or whatnot. So this is a really great quote that I love by Satchel Paige. I grew up in Venezuela, so I'm a baseball fan. So Satchel Paige was a really great baseball player, and I love his quote. And this is a quote that I live by. And it says, age is a question of mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter. So I use those to pull, key points between words. So it's a play on words and how you structure your content. So these are all principles you can apply as you're creating your digital designs or you're trying to come up with a campaign. Use these elements to make your copy stand out, but also pull on some words, because these bigger words, age is, mind, matter, these are the ones that keep popping up for people and they can see those quickly as they're glancing through it. So I keep getting disconnected on the main platform, Courtney. So I'm sorry, guys.
No worries. Change your Wi-Fi password after this. We are getting a copy up on the screen.
Oh, it's all right. It's super safe. Yeah, no worries. Thank you. And so that's, using a quote graphic. So this could be something where you can share about your experience. And then we can look at some other ones where you're using, I'll show you just a quick different one that has more of, if you're trying to do a flash sale, here we're using colors to really pop, but then we have the focus of the lady here. And how I did this design, essentially without giving you guys a whole breakdown of it, is I actually just did a font. So you go into fonts and there's this font called Wanderlust. And what you do is you tap on that and you select that as your font. And what I ended up doing, I'm just going to go on edit so you can see exactly what it is. I literally added a period. So you add a period, you select the font Wanderlost, and what I ended up doing is I have this photo here in the background. You can see kind of how that's in the background. And what I did was I used the dot, the period, to use a cutout effect. So if you go onto the shape mode and you see, is it popping up on the screen? Yes. Okay. So if you go into shape mode and you tap on the little dotted ABCs, you'll be able to see how it's like a cutout effect. I don't think it's showing up on the screen. So you'll see, let me do this. I'm going to be creative and do this because my other screen is not working. So, oh my goodness. This is, I don't know what's happening. So
take your time. We've got some
fantastic. So as I'm trying to resolve, fantastic. Well, let me try and see if I can figure out how this whole component is working with my screen not sharing for some reason. But if it isn't, I'm going to go old school and show you guys the screen because that's what we have to do.
That's what we have to do. In the meantime, we have a lot of questions around color coming in.
My favorite.
I know this is her area of expertise, so I'm unmuting myself for a moment, so forgive the echo if you are getting one. Ranjita Ram asks, how do we choose colors for fonts? And is there a mantra for good color combination?
Ooh, I love that question. So I'll start with, think about color as a universal language. We can see color and how it across the world. We associate shapes first and then color. So think about those things. So are there any cultural references that may be tied into those colors? And then think about the emotions tied to color. I think what happens a lot of the times as we work with color is that we base it more on the combination. Hey, this color combination works really well, instead of the emotion that the color might evoke. So let's say if I was to just change this background color that I have here to a completely different color that's more muted, let's say, or let me turn it to brown. You see kind of how it's not popping up here. So let's do this. If I change the color to brown, as you can see here, it changes the emotion. So I'm hoping that you guys can see it too on the screen here. And now it's popping up. Okay, so perfect. So as you see that simple color change can change the entire emotion. So think about, as you go through combining your colors and shifting things around, what is it that you're trying to evoke? On my website, I have a lot of resources that give you some reference point as to what each color can communicate, but it also depends on how you pair that. So let's say if you pair a red and green, a lot of people associate that with Christmas. But let's say you were trying to evoke not necessarily Christmas, but your brand colors may be aligned with those, then you need to figure out what value needs to be darker or lighter so you can create some contrast. So I know it's kind of like a big answer, but really it stems down to the emotion that you want to drive behind your designs.
Couple more questions come in on Instagram about color, but I hope that answered the question for you. Blurry Skate, you asked, what's your thinking on deciding the colors? Do you have an idea in mind, or do you try different colors until you find the one you like? You just shared weekday. It's more about what is the emotion that you're trying to evoke? What's the goal of the color as opposed to maybe the combination that we know works really well? So let us know if that answered your question. A lot of great comments just about, I love this mindset, color for emotion.
I'm so glad.
Yes.
It really is. And you guys, when you start to apply that in your marketing and your digital and your designs, it really makes a huge difference. And I don't think enough people are aware of this. And this is something that's been in place since like the beginning of time. You know, that's how we started communicating, was through cave paintings and the colors we use. So that's something very powerful, and I'm really glad. And if you guys have any more questions about that, you can just send me a DM afterwards too. I'd be happy to answer and give you guys some more pointers. So you guys can see my screen now, but I think there's just a little lag with my technicality right now. So what I'm going to do is, if there's any other questions, Courtney, while I'm trying to work with some of these glitches.
Wonderful. Mostly just wonderful comments about, oh my gosh, this content is so good. Thank you.
No.
This is so cool, actually using Adobe as we speak from best first different clients during the quarantine. Yes, that's the goal here.
I love that.
Plenty
That's
of clients still
fantastic.
during the quarantine.
Okay, so I'm going to try this one more time before I have to try and see if I can just switch to the desktop mode because it keeps kicking me out. I don't think it's liking me using my iPad. So I want to give you guys a little behind the scenes as to when I was talking about when you're trying to create some sort of value-based content that has a lot of copy and you need to divide it. You can see here some of the graphics that I've done on Spark. And what I've done is I kind of create carousel posts for Instagram. So if you guys have not been implementing that, there's also a really great tutorial that I did for Adobe Spark, and it's in the IGTV channel. So you can kind of refresh back to see the example about creating carousel posts. But that's a great way to break down your content in different steps and give people a value point. So you're literally seeing the back end of my graphics and kind of how I brand my content. And this is exactly what you can do on Adobe Spark Post because it really just kind of helps you and you can kick it out like on your phone, on your iPad. And that's what I really love about using this platform and kind of just using that and structuring that. So to bring it like full circle with how you are connecting, once you've done your designs and your graphics, think about the things that your goals, what was the purpose, right, that you were trying to convey, and then is this platform, right, if you're doing a video, if you're using graphics, are they successfully communicating your message? And is it easy to read? So if you feel that some of it is hard to read, then you need to maybe just backtrack and see how can I'm going to go back to sharing my face because I keep getting kicked out. So, and we're going to flip there we go. So, think about how you can get that connection point. So if you're looking at your graphics and you're seeing your information and it doesn't feel like it's easy to read, if you have that little moment of like, I'm not sure if this is really communicated, then backtrack, maybe go revise it, break down the content to where you feel like you're really connecting with people. I really feel that emotion for any campaign is the way to go. And it's not just for now, it's for moving forward. That's how, when we buy from these brands that we love, it's usually because they made us feel something, whether we feel like we're part of the cool club or it actually solves a pain point for us. Those are all emotions and we buy based on emotions. So really use it in a positive way. I'm not saying, use like, oh, if you don't buy this product, you are just going to lose your hair tomorrow or, something like extreme like that. But you want to really connect with people and their pain points that they may be experiencing during this time.
Someone had a question about fonts, about choosing fonts. Do you have any wise words for that?
Yes, absolutely. Love that question. When it comes to choosing fonts, you have to think about fonts as a personality too, right? Just like what colors they add to your brand personality. So depending on how you want that personality association with your brand, think about the fonts you use. But the second thing is you may be a very fun, energetic person, kind of like that's how I am, but it doesn't mean you need to use like the squiggly chicken scratch fonts that are like superly ornate and then use that for a lot of copy, because what happens is that it affects your brand personality in a negative way. So instead of it being positive, because it's kind of, you're trying to associate with your vibrant energy, it makes it hard to read. So then what happens is that people just kind of, without them thinking, sometimes they lose trust or your brand just has less value. So that's something that you need to consider as you are choosing your fonts. And then the third rule is that if it's hard for you to read within like the first like 1 to 2 seconds, I'm talking like milliseconds really, you need to change the font. Because if you can't read it yourself and you know exactly what it was that you wrote, chances are someone else that's seeing it on the screen will not be able to read it. And what happens is you can lose a sale, you lose a connection with someone just because of that. And you may have an incredible message to share with someone, but just that font change can be very hard. So another thing too is that if you're not really sure if it's good, or some of it can be like a handwritten type font, and those are great, but make them larger, especially for social media. Don't use them for a paragraph of text. It's going to make it so much harder to read. And if you squint your eyes, this is like a good trick that I love to share, is that if you squint your eyes and it gets like you cannot read it at all, that means that there might be some legibility issues. So if you have an audience that is older, that may have glasses like me or have like some eyesight issues, they might have a harder time reading your content too. So thinking about that too. So if you're trying to target an audience that's much older, like seniors, having a sans serif is much better because it's just so much easier to read.
Thank you for saying that. That is so that's the number one thing I see people, especially on Twitter, fall into the trap of, is overloading their posts with text, not being mindful of the fact that everyone has text on that platform. So you're really competing to have your text stand out. So lumping it all together it's not helping with your engagement or your messaging.
Yeah, that is so true. Yeah. And I'm glad you see it. And I feel like the more people are aware of it, the more we can collectively start to enhance the experience for everyone.
I love that. All right, we're running short on time. So let's get one more question in. We had a couple. Let me see, just followed you. iMovie to add music, but the flyer never fits to add music. I can tell you, use Adobe Spark Video if you want to add music to anything that you're creating.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
And then actually, if you're using Post, use Post for a flyer for adding music. Actually, hold on. Let me get back to that question for you, because you can add video to Post now for 15 seconds.
Yes.
But flyer size, adding music, I got to see about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's a great question.
I know it is. It's a very intricate need.
I love that. I love those questions, because then I'm going to go check it out and see if I can do it.
Awesome. And then,
yes. If you create let's say you're doing an Instagram story from a video that you have, you can use Post and like create little snippets, 15-second snippets, to do like 3 different stories based on this longer video. So that's another thing that you can do to maximize that.
Awesome. We got a good question in from journalist Hannah on Instagram Live. She asked, what are the best ways to use Adobe Spark icons? Your recommendations.
Ooh, I love the icon features, because I really feel that it can add depth to your design. So here's different ways that you can use it. You can use it for visual cues. So if you're trying to talk about a product and specific key values that the product has, let's say it's lightweight, it's easy to use, you can look for icons that reflect that. And you can make them smaller. So it's just like quick little easy cues that tell people, hey, here's what this is. So it relates visually to the copy. And that's one way to do that. Another way is to use icons to create textures. So what I've done is that you can make the icons really big. If you look up Blob, that's one of my favorite icon series to look at, is Blob. There's some really great blob looking like icons that you can use that has these really beautiful organic shapes. And what I do is I just go in and just like pinch out, like, make it large, so that it just kind of covers, like, I'm thinking like the screen is like a design element. So if you see me using my hands, that's what I'm kind of trying to relate the visuals. But you kind of arrange it in like the corners or in some other areas. So you're kind of creating a whole different background using that. And there's some that are textures as well. So if you want to add textures using icons, search textures, change the color. So it could be like a lighter color. You can add some opacity so that it's not so intense. And that's how you can literally use that to create new backgrounds, focus on key points, and just really, icons are the way to go for me, really, for like, there's so many options. So I really hope that answered your question.
It does. And Best First Different added another recommendation. Icons are good for the highlights on Instagram too.
Yes.
Thinking out there, you're thinking. That's what we like to hear. Yes. All right. Well, that's all the time we have today, folks. So thank you, Nick Day, for joining us with this amazing advice. I'm gonna make sure to reshare this for you all to see. Nick Day, you should rewatch it, because there's some amazing compliments and comments coming in for you. So please enjoy that. And join us next week for another Spark Live series episode.
Thank you guys for having me. As always, I love talking about Spark. So hope we get connected.
Bye.
Bye.